What is the problem with intelligent design theory? Well, there's not a problem per se, but it's still operating within the linear ectomorphic semi-model, which means that it's only looking at things from the perspective of retarded present to future causation, meaning that it's ignoring the programmatic aspects of reality that exist in the advanced semi-model. And it's only looking from the without of things. It's not looking towards internal structure as a way of bottom-up causation. Is that it's only doing the top-down part, which means that it's looking for supernatural explanations, and that can be a god, that could in principle even be a sentient alien. All that they're saying is that it's unlikely that that Darwinism could fully account for the complexity of life that we see simply by random mutation and selection. But that's not actually an argument. That's an intuitive point. And there's no way actually to prove that within the realm of standard probability theories, that you need a deeper embedding model that will allow you to actually make a model of specified design. That's what they're always talking about. They're talking about specified complexity, irreducible complexity. And these are good concepts that are valid and interpretable within the CTMU. But you actually have to have a deeper model in order to actually think clearly about teleological causation, which is what they're ultimately talking about, is that there has to be, they're basically just hand waving and saying, yes, reality seems teleological because it is complex. But they're not actually saying what the teleology is, what is the purpose of life, why is it complex, what is it striving towards, and how does that causation work. So in the paper by Christopher Langan, Cheating the Millennium, The Mounting Explanatory Debts of Scientific Naturalism, which is published in a book called Uncommon Descent, Intellectuals Who Find Darwinism Unconvincing, by William Dembski, who's a mathematician who is a prominent dissident against Darwinist theory and is one of the main proponents of intelligent design. In this book, he basically talks about how neither intelligent design theory nor Darwinism is sufficiently powerful to actually explain biological causality, and there needs to be a deeper embedding model, and that model, he argues, is the CTMU. So starting with intelligent design theory, it's you need to get rid of this notion of top-down design where everything is kind of mechanistically or cybernetically controlled from the very top, and all of the structure and processing that goes into the design process is centralized rather than distributed. Remember, in the CTMU, we have a cognitive perceptual syntax that is the base structure of reality, which means that it's actually generalized cognition, and every syntactic operator within a system is actually helping to participate in the unfolding life and rules and structure of that system, meaning that the source and means of design are distributed as well. So yes, there is a designer or a designing agency in nature, but it's not quite as top down. It's actually a designer or creator that inheres within nature as its as kind of its essential basis, and nature is actually the overflowing of that divine entity. So it's not quite the way that we usually think about it in terms of the something external from nature that is imposing its will on it. It's actually imposing its will on it endomorphically from within. And the reason why we're thinking about it in terms of an external designer is because we're still within that ectomorphic semi-model, that thing where we look at everything from without. We look at everything from physics rather than its spiritual or meta-mechanistic, meta-mechanical way of looking at things. Is that we actually have to go beyond the mechanical stage and actually say, yes, there's actually there is internal structure that is happening, and to omit that is to omit the self-programmatic structure of reality, and therefore the ability of biology to create and design itself at all. So there has to be basically a stage analogous to the universe's self-programming and self-design, as we've discussed with conspansion, is that there is a source and means of design, a design stage in which the designs are generated. So there's a space of potential that is created and then is selected by some sort of intrinsic memory or intelligence and creativity in nature, is that it figures out what is the optimal self-configuration. It chooses that from a space of potential designs, and then it actualizes that, in which the designs become physically real through the unfolding process of evolution, in keeping with the this non-terminal domain of design and potential, is that that is actually being acted upon through logos, and that is creating within life these stable configurations of energy that then become the various life forms, which are able to adapt to their environment and survive and reproduce in increasingly complex and more structurally integral ways towards the teleology of the system. So all of life is reflecting the teleology of all of the reality system, and then there is a means and mechanism for passing from the design stage to the actualization stage. And that's basically what we're talking about when we're talking about biological causalities. We're talking about number 4, is how something goes from that design stage, goes from that metaphysical drive for self-identification, that is the primary telecursive parameter, and life's metaphysical origin. How does the metaphysical origin become a biological origin later on? And that is basically how we have to think about causality. So the of course, there have been a number of particular teleological models for how this works. Classically, there's just God created the universe, or God shares his authority with angels and they create the universe, and so forth. But they actually don't. Or perhaps there's God is just like there's a common analogy of God as a watchmaker. He just winds up the universe and then it goes on its own deterministically. So there are a number of ways that we can think about how the order of the universe could possibly have have happened. But it's actually and there are a number of interesting theories, particularly North Whitehead's idea of process theology, whereby God is immanent in nature's becoming, and that's actually similar to the sort of thing that we talked about. But they're actually inadequate formulations of a more general theory, because they don't support all of the logical requirements of that we just discussed. Is that there's not an ability for them to bring their design stage into the actualization stage, because to do that you need to split reality into 2 phases of potency and act, or alternatively programming and display, and actually allow reality that self-programmatic structure, which is missing from infantile formulations of intelligent design theory as well as classical theology. So they intelligent design theory as is basically a modern incarnation of these same concepts, couched in more scientific and probability-based language. But it basically has the same requirements, and it's but it doesn't quite make the cut for a CTMU-based model of evolution without significant qualification and interpretation within the metaformal system. But basically, it places emphasis on 2 phenomena as probabilistic reasons why there can't be random selection and mutation. And it's one is irreducible complexity, which says that it's not is that reality actually has to generate designs all at once in order for it to work at all. It wouldn't be for a simple example would be that let's say there were a mutation where I grew half an ear. Theoretically, that's a useful mutation towards greater hearing if I didn't have ears before, but it's actually not going to be selected for within biological evolution, because it's not going to help my survival or reproduction until I actually have a full ear. So there's this irreducible complexity whereby it's literally impossible for evolution to proceed by this piece by piece evolution where there's just one mutation, because my getting 1,000th of the way towards an ear doesn't help me at all. There actually has to be a way for reality and for life to recognize that that is actually a good configuration for me to get closer towards having an ear in order for that piece by piece evolution to work. And there's a sense in which the entire design for an ear, even if it's not realized within one generation, has to be designed metacausally within the biological system before it's even actualized. So there has to be a space of design and potential that precedes the actualization stage. And then biological evolution is just the mechanism by which that design for an ear then becomes actualized. But it can't happen piecemeal. It has to happen all at once, at least in this non-terminal domain. So the other examples of this are blood clotting, the human eye, etc. All of these are basically not possible to have evolved piece by piece. They had to, in some sense, have evolved all at once. Me getting it doesn't, like me getting 1,000th of the way towards an eye won't help me see. It won't help my survival and reproduction. So there's this irreducible complexity whereby it's not, these piecemeal adaptations would not be advantageous in the way that seems to be necessary to model them as the product of natural selection. So, and then specified complexity, which is a more general description of intelligent causation, just says that it's unreasonably complex for, let's say, something like a human eye is a specific thing that is that would have required incredible application of intelligence and design to produce on its own. It's not really possible that such a pattern of design could have occurred simply by chance. And this is not really fully justified within the intelligent design framework, but it has valid basis in probability theory, is that it's tremendously improbable that such a thing could have arisen. There are three things which you need. You need a contingency, so you need something that could have not happened. For example, humans could have not grown eyes. I don't know when that happened in our evolution, probably one of our very distant ancestors, but it could have not happened. The predecessors to humans could have not grown eyes. So that is a contingent thing. It is complex and it is specific. It is a specific thing and it is incredibly complex. There are thousands of organelles and tissues that all have to come together perfectly. I don't think we'd even have the ability to make anything close to like an eye. We have certain abilities of machine vision, but something that can actually externalize internal reality and mediate between internal and external reality and basically work towards to create sense data for consciousness. I don't think that's possible within our current biological capabilities. So so it's not even within the application of human intelligence would it be possible. So clearly, whatever designing faculty within nature, according to intelligent design theory, must be substantially more complex than humans, such as God or one of his angelic functionaries, as a way of creating this contingent specified complexity. So, for example, a contingency is just the number of things which could possibly happen. Is there could be trillions of things which we could have grown instead of eyes, I guess. I don't. It's kind of a weird way to think about it. But for example, the contingency of a 4-digit lottery is 1 in 10,000 because there are 10,000 possibilities. Similarly, for something with as great specified complexity as the human eye, there could be literally the total contingency, the set of all possible drawings for the eye could be in the quintillions. It could be even more than that. It's actually is most likely irreducible. It's actually literally a 0% chance, perhaps even less, not even within the domain of probability theory, that could have arisen by chance, because randomness or chance basically means patternlessness. And you can't display a pattern without having a pattern in the first place in this non-terminal domain. So by omitting the self-programmatic aspects of reality, you're omitting the very possibility for complexity or structure, and therefore you get down to it's not even registerable within probability theory how unlikely it is for that to occur. But this isn't fully justified within intelligent design theory because it's only thinking about things in terms of contingency. So it's doomed to ascribe like an arbitrarily low number, like I don't know, like 10, like 1 in like 10 billion to the probability of an eye, when actually it's not even an intelligible number to think about. It's not like there's a certain probability that this could have happened on its own. No, without self-programming and without structure, it's impossible that life could have evolved in the way it did, or any specific complex part of it could have as well. So basically, all of the instances of specified complexity are actually not best thought about within a computational or probabilistic framework. There has to actually be a deeper level of structure and biological causality, which is not accounted for within intelligent design theory, but is within the CTMU's interpretation and grounding of it. So specified complexity does yield some good insight in terms of the requirements that we discussed at the beginning, because it allows there to be a way in which the specificational and replicational, so basically the design and potential and the actualization stages have ways of making common contact with one another, in effect raising their probability because they're linked in such a way that there has to be a design, and there has to, so basically it's not quite it doesn't quite prove any of the requirements, but it says that they have to be there. There has to be a design, there has to be a means of actualization, there has to be the actualization stage itself. So all of these requirements are satisfied technically within specified complexity theory. And that's why intelligent design theory, according to Langen, is actually scientifically and philosophically robust, is that it's a good framework, at least compared to Darwinism, but it doesn't fully account for its own structure, because it doesn't properly actually relate intelligence and design, defining intelligence and design in mutual coupling as the ability to recognize and control reality, which is necessary for any biological process of evolution. So Langen says, up to its current level of detail and coherence, the model universe of ID theory does not necessarily conflict with that of neo-Darwinism with respect to causality, but rather contains it, requiring only that causality be interpreted in light of this containment. So the problem with intelligent design theory ultimately is that you're not able to actually formulate it within the syntax of the CTMU until you actually have a common, recognize that it shares common structure with Darwinism. So you can't omit either of these from your explanation. And by seeking a non-self-programmatic explanation for the origins of life, you ultimately come up short and have to fall back on these kind of absurd probabilities, which seem like intuitively convincing, but aren't actually a formal argument for intelligent design. So anywho, thank you. God bless. Take care. This has been I hope this has been interesting and informative.